Okay, so the next way of creating some detail in our hide there, besides just straight up modeling, is actually just to do some sculpting, and we're going to be looking at that using the sculpting tool here in Blender. And so first thing I want to do is actually go ahead and do that little bevel. Oops, actually, very first thing I'm going to do is duplicate and name this my high, and then hide my low. Okay, so now with that, we're doing that same thing we've done a bazillion times already, and I might as well turn on screen keys. And so let's go in. So we've got edge selected. We're in edit mode. Then we want to select sharp edges. I'm going to crank this back down to the default, which is in around, yeah, in around there. And then zooming in so I can just get a subtle Control B to do our bevel. Dialing it in. And since I've already wheel moused it up earlier, I've already have the separation, so I just wheel mouse it again. And you can go as high as you want with that, and just to give us a subtle edge. Making sure our shade's smooth on. Okay, so we've got our basic high here. And so we've got all of the edges that we were looking to do. So now we're going into the sculpting end of things. And so what we need to do, because right now we still have a very low geometry item here, so we can't actually just go in here and start sculpting details without first setting this up. And what we're doing is activating the the Dino Topo setting here. And by default, I believe it's going to be on, I think, 12 pixels. This number here represents how much it's going to subdivide the geometry as we try sculpting. And we can see here that this is really blocky. And your ability to go up in this thing will probably depend on your computer. So I'm going to give it a shot at 1. And I'm reducing my brush size with these square brackets down and up. And I'm just going to put a really basic face on here. And notice too, it's creating extra geometry as I'm applying the brush strokes. So you can't really go ripping fast with it. It's actually not bad, but if you get doing some broad strokes, it could start to slow down for you. And remember, same thing applies, that we can't go too deep and we can't pull it out too far. Otherwise, it's going to fail. We're looking for an illusion of depth, not real depth. So you want to keep it almost as if it's a just detail being added to the surface, almost like a decal or something like that. All right, so I'm not going to go too nuts. I'm going to do my patented 10-second skull here. And just because, I'm going to go with a kind of a crease and add more dimension to it. So we can see not only the blobby details, but any kind of fine details. And I'm finding too, if you wish to do nice details with your draw sharp, this would be, I think, the equivalent of damn standard in ZBrush. You may want to do a regular draw first to essentially add the geometry in. So it seems to do a better job adding a good thick chunk of geometry and then coming in after the fact and doing your more detailed work with your, I'm going to keep calling it damn standard, it is a draw sharp. So same as I was trying to draw this in here, we can see it works a hell of a lot better once I have that extra geometry in place from just the regular draw brush. Okay, and that's looking like that should be enough to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So now we have this detail added on. So same procedure as before, export, FBX, double checking, make sure the selected object's on. And I'm going to go in here. I'm going to call this the thing high blended because my naming conventions are awesome. And then export. And with all this extra geometry, this is a quite a fat object. And I believe this happened to me before. I don't think you can export with Dynotopia checked. So you'll get an error saying that it's detected it. So either remember to turn it off or try to save it, let it fail, and then save it again. Oh, it may actually have worked. I don't trust that I'm doing it again. Alright. So it's successfully saved out. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to bake the mesh with the new object that we've created. And that is the thing high blended. And then let her bake. I did it again. When I brought it into sculpting mode, I got my front and back mixed up. So my little skull face is on the back side. And there we go. And we just let it update. And I turn this thing around. And we're seeing we now have the illusion that this thing has this kind of intricate carving-ish type thing on the front face. And since it's geometry that was brought in with our high, we're noticing that this very, very basic setup that I have is working with it. So this layer here is chipping away at all of the high, and this little dirt layer is filling in the recessions. All right. Next up, we'll be looking at actually creating this detail using layers set up in Substance Painter itself.